Welcome to HFFC. We are honored to have Connecticut Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff. Bob's Norwalk family goes back several generations. When asked why public service, he can trace his passion back to when he was 9 years old and fighting for the future of Duffy Field, now Veterans Park. He's been elected 4 times by his peers to serve as Senate Majority Leader, attesting to the respect he has within the legislature as a leader and man of action. He has a reputation as a consumer watchdog and has championed legislation for renewable energy, education, gun safety, data privacy, religious freedom. Thank you, Bob, for returning.
Thank you. I really appreciate it and appreciate everybody's time. And I'll speak a little bit about the kind of issues coming up in the legislative session, and then answer some questions as well and see what's on the minds of you all, because that's how we learn, by hearing from folks we represent. So from a standpoint of our state of the state, I would say that Connecticut is in a very good place right now. Hear all the time from folks that Connecticut really has had a great comeback over the last few years. We are gaining population. We were able to pass over $600 million of tax cuts in the last legislative session. We have a filled rainy day fund. We are paying down our pension debt. We are growing jobs. And as a matter of fact, I believe Connecticut had the seventh fastest growing economy in the country last year, which is really a wonderful testament to the work that's been done over the last decade to kind of pull ourselves out of the pension indebtedness and kicking the can down the road. And we have managed to do that in a way that I think has been very fruitful for the people of the state of Connecticut. So we're growing jobs, growing population, we're making good investments. I think many of our cities are thriving, and people generally have a very good view and feel of the state of Connecticut. And that's a great thing. So we need to continue that. I read an article today that more of our graduates are actually staying in Connecticut, whether they're UConn, whether they are Yale, or any of our other private schools. They're staying here. Of course, our state schools, other state schools as well. So all those things are good. Our fundamentals are very strong. And while you see a lot of other states right now potentially having deficits in the future, we still are projecting a surplus. And that is due to our volatility cap. And it's also due to strong withholding from our income tax. And that is good. Anecdotally, I think hearing from a lot of folks who are moving back to Connecticut, some folks moved down south. And, I always tell folks that it's not apples to apples if you move south and you pay low taxes, that here in Connecticut, you get what you pay for. And there's better healthcare here. Crime is much lower. The services are better. People are here for a reason. Now, we may not all enjoy these kind of icy, snowy days, but I'll take that over a place where the education system is terrible, or the water's not good, or there's gun violence, things like that. So I'll take that. The other part I just want to mention to this group as well is in our tax cuts, we have worked to smooth the cliff on pensions and annuities, and not taxing Social Security and not taxing those pension annuities. That's been very important, and an important fight for a lot of us who champion that for many years. It is expensive in our budget, but it is worth it because it does help keep seniors here in the state of Connecticut. And by not taxing that income again, I think is a good step, and hopefully we can continue to do more on that as well. It is a rosy scenario, but I also know that we still have our challenges here in the state. There isn't a state in the nation that doesn't have challenges, but we certainly do. But I think ours are ones that we can work on over years to help fix and ensure that we are continue to be a leading state, especially if you look at many of the social indices that come out from various reports. Connecticut is always at tops for low crime, low violent crime, women's health. We're always at the top for healthcare in general, education, and other things. But that doesn't mean we still don't have issues to work on. For example, we still have to work on education in our cities and focus on making sure that those who are new to this country have access to education. Those who are in the inner cities and some of the poorest members of our society have access to a good, high quality education. That folks have access to food and healthcare and housing. Affordable housing is a huge issue for us here in the state of Connecticut. We have a need for over 100,000 units here in the state of housing. We're as we know, there's not a lot on the market. We have a lot of people who still want to remain in their homes, which is fine. But we need to build new units to accommodate people moving into the state and our graduates. Our graduates will not stay in the state if they can't afford to live here. And as a matter of fact, you're starting to see that in other places, Boston or New York, where it's just too prohibitive for people to live there, especially if you're just starting out. And you can't afford to live there even if you work there. The House Majority Leader and I have worked very hard on raising the issue of housing, more housing and affordable housing. We think the governor is going to be pushing it next session, hopefully. We'll continue to work on that. Our transportation infrastructure is very, very important for us as well. A lot of good things going on there. We have the Walk Bridge project in Norwalk that's replacing not only that bridge, but many of the ancillary, well, I shouldn't say ancillary, but many of the other bridges around it that connect in that area from Westport through Norwalk, and modernizing many of the bridges that are over 100 years old. Again, extremely important for us to make sure we get that right. And working on our highways, and such as the I-91, 691, Route 15 interchange. We're going to be starting the Route 7, Route 15 interchange in 2025. The Merit 7 train station is finally done. So there's lots of good things, but that is an important component of growing our economy. And the third thing, obviously, is I talk housing, transportation, and education, and ensuring that we do have the resources for our children, especially in our urban areas like Norwalk and Stamford, Hartford, New Haven, Danbury, and many other cities throughout the state of Connecticut. We're going to be talking a lot about early childhood education this year. We're going to be talking a lot about our community colleges, but there's many other sub-issues beyond that, such as ensuring that kids have adequate amount of food and that they're not coming to school hungry, and that we can feed them and do that in a way that is important, and that having hunger as a barrier to learning. We'll send kids home sometimes for a headache, but we won't send them home because they have a stomach ache because of the fact that they're hungry. So we need to make sure that we look at hunger as an issue, not just as something that is solved someplace else, but that we can solve here, and we can do that in some way, shape, or form in our schools and in a public way, so that no kid is hungry, whether for breakfast or for lunch or over the weekends. We'll be talking about other issues as well, such as artificial intelligence and consumer protection bills. We're already starting to look at a number of different issues there that the president has talked about, that we're talking about. Still fighting for net neutrality, though we have a really strong data privacy law that I worked on for 5 or 6 or 7 years that we finally passed. That is now really the gold standard around the country and with other states. They're looking at the Connecticut, they call it the Connecticut model on that. And that's, very gratifying to hear. Senator James Maroney, who chairs the General Law Committee, is pretty much seen as the foremost expert right now on artificial intelligence. He's moderated a number of panels, spoken at a number of panels around the country, and it's great to have that kind of expertise here in the state. We'll be looking at, other issues that probably require funding next session as we go along, and how that's all going to shake out. I can't predict at this point. It's a little too early. There's never a shortage of issues, but I feel very good about a lot of the things that we've tackled over the last year or so, such as we've worked on mental health issues and putting funding there. We have worked on making sure that our paid family medical leave is one of the best, if not the best in the country. We have legalized cannabis. We have the clean slate bill is finally fully implemented, and people's records are getting cleaned by the day, which is great. And that's exciting. It gives people another hope. Our prison population continues to go down, saving taxpayer money and ensuring that people are being diverted, if they're not violent, into programs that helps reduce recidivism, and those who are violent are spending more time in prison. We're continuing to look at ways in which we can make the appropriate investments in our cities and our communities throughout the state of Connecticut so that everyone has good opportunity, live, work, raise their families, and do it in a way that really sets Connecticut above the rest of the nation. So I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what we can do. And I'm glad we have our fiscal guardrails that has kept our balance sheet in the black and not the red like so many other states are right now. And that we can move forward in a very positive way. So thank you again.
Thank you very much for coming back.
My pleasure.